Welcome to this week's edition of the Mike Brey Show. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined by the head basketball coach, Mike Brey. Coach, we're sitting here after another big win against North Carolina. It's 4 in a row now for you guys. What's been working so well for you?
You know, I just think our leadership and our veteran guys have grabbed a hold of this group and have made plays down the stretch, especially in our 2 league games against Pittsburgh and against North Carolina, to scratch out a win. I'm very proud of our older guys. This
really feels like the team we expected to see early in the season. In the last month, just what has stuck out as maybe a big key for you guys that's allowed you to go on this run?
Well, I think getting Prentice Hub back in the right frame of mind. He had a really rough start. He is such a key for us as far as quarterbacking us and leading us. Of course, Dane Goodwin's been there from day one. And I feel like we have a Nate Liszeski light bulb kind of starting to go on. Cormac Ryan has been our best defender. Trey Wirtz coming off, handling the ball, finding people. Blake Wesley being Blake Wesley. You know, we have 7 guys that know who they are. They've played together a lot now, and I think they understand how to play off of each other better on both ends of the floor.
Coming up next, it's the Game Breakdown segment where we look back at all the men's basketball action. This is the Mike Brey Show presented by TireRack.com. It's time now to break down the last month of hoops for you guys. It's been 4 in a row. Before that, though, after the last time we talked against Kentucky, you went on the road, I guess, in a neutral site game against Indiana. Crossroads Classic. That was a game I thought you guys had a really good start to the first half, then you got into some foul trouble. What'd you take away from that game, a tough loss in that environment?
Well, you know, it definitely was a road game atmosphere, Tony, even though they call it a neutral site. And it was the last game of the Crossroads, and playing an Indiana team that can really defend you. They guarded the heck out of us, you know, the last 10 minutes of the second half. But I was really proud of our group. We came back and had 3 chances to take the lead and couldn't make any shots to get the lead. And you got to at least feel getting the lead. I thought Indiana did a great job with their frontline guys, kind of beating us up inside, and we just couldn't get over the hump in that atmosphere.
You know, in that game, I wanted to ask you one thing that this team's had to really deal with is that 7-man rotation you've talked about all year. They got into foul trouble. Paul Atkinson, Blake Wesley had to sit the end of the first half. But since that game, I think your team's really managed their fouls better, played with foul trouble better. What have you seen from them in that department?
Well, we've really talked to them about that. And I actually told Nate and Paul before the North Carolina game the other night, I said, you cannot get a foul before the first media timeout. If a guy has an angle on you, let him dunk it. And so I think Paul still got into some trouble with Carolina, but we have to be smart about when we foul. We've always been a program that's been not a fouling program. We've kept people off the foul line. I think the other thing that helps us, and we're going to have to keep looking at it, is playing some zone, which I think will become more and more of our game plan moving forward.
It worked in the Pitt game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's start, though, with Western Michigan. You guys came home. It was a real chance, I think, for you guys to get right. You mentioned against Indiana, didn't knock down the threes. You started to knock down a lot of threes against Western Michigan with 14.
You know, I've been having to answer why my guys can't shoot for a month, and I'm saying, you know, I'm watching this group in practice, and I really think we got some good shooters, and it was almost like we opened up the floodgates and shot the heck out of against Western Michigan. And ever since then, we've been shooting the ball well. But I thought what we've done offensively with some more structure, I think our good shooters are knowing more where they're getting the ball, and they're getting the ball with calmer feet. And that's why I think our percentages are up since Western Michigan.
Let's talk about one of those guys that got going. Cormac Ryan, I think, has played great defense all year, but he broke out for 13 points in the second half against Western Michigan. When he's shooting it well, what kind of element does that add to your team?
Yeah, and he is a great shooter, and you make a great point. He is an amazing defender, and I think sometimes he exhausts his legs because he works so hard defensively. He takes charges. He leads us in charges taken, and so when he gets it back, sometimes he's a little winded, but I think he's getting better game shape now, and we want him to rise up when he's got a clean look and stick it, and he felt good the other night.
It was a great game. You guys got a 30-plus point victory, then just had to turn around, I think about 36 hours later, 1 o'clock start against a Corpus Christi team that you were very aware of. They had 10 wins coming in. They made that game difficult for you guys. You only had 6 players that you played, too, with Trey Wirtz out, dealing with an ankle injury. How'd you assess your performance in that game to get that 10-point win at home?
Well, I tell you, when I think back to when I decided to play this game and then let them play at 1 o'clock so they could get to the airport, 2 days before, I thought to myself, I really should have my head checked. I don't know if I put my group in the best position. And it kind of played out that way because they jumped on us, quick team. They guard the heck out of you. They turn you over. They're driving at your throat. And we had a really hard time with them. But again, maybe in this game is where we started to show some of these traits of, with game pressure on us, we made some big shots and really important plays. And to scratch out a win before Christmas against that team, I thought was very important for us moving forward. And I think it's helped us then in our 2 league games.
Let's talk about maybe your most consistent player, Dane Goodwin, who's been involved in every game, double figures in every game. But in that Corpus Christi game, he played 39 minutes, gave you 21 points on 7 of 14 shooting. Just overall, what has he meant to this program this year specifically?
Well, you mentioned 39 minutes. You can see it's hard for me to take him out of the game. You know, he has been rock solid from day one. He's been a leader this year. He's been more vocal than ever before. And the thing that we're starting to see, we know he can score and we know he can rebound and we know he's fearless. Now he's starting to pass the ball and really look like a guard. I think he's had 7 assists in the between the Pitt and North Carolina, 7 or 8 assists. So he's starting to join the club of our good passers and finding people.
Coach, appreciate it. When we come back, we'll break down the 2 ACC victories against Pitt and North Carolina after this on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. Now time to look at the last 2 ACC victories for you guys. Coach, you were going on the road to Pittsburgh. You were coming off your last road game in league against Boston College where you guys just didn't look like yourselves. I felt there was an added emphasis to get this one on the road against Pitt. Going into the game, what was the mindset? What was the message to the team for this game?
Well, you're right, Tony. Extremely important game after not playing well at all at Boston College, getting our backsides handed to us. And you want to get to 1-1 in that league. You start to lose and not get a league win, man, it's hard to climb out of that hole. Pittsburgh, a physical group that's really going to guard you and kind of drive at your throat and try and beat you up. And to me, it was like one of those old Big East games, the physicality and the pain and the driving and the banging. And we hung in there, even though it was ugly and we could never really get our offense going till about the last 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was a really interesting one. Tied at halftime, and then your team got off to just a slow start in the second half. I think you guys were 3 for 15 from the floor as you came into the second to last media timeout. You were down 8 minutes to play. I just want to know what kind of conversation goes on in the huddle there, because your team went on a great run out of that media timeout.
One of the things that I've liked about this group, and I think it's really started with the week of practice before the Kentucky game. You know, and again, the Boston College game, I think, was a great wake-up call for all of us, especially our leadership. I think they've taken better ownership of themselves, this group. And I think when you get to that as the leader and your team has ownership of itself, you always have a chance. And I think since then, we've been really good. And in that huddle, it was them talking more than me talking, and figuring out, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and with a confident tone. And my thing with them was, let's just keep game pressure on them. We've been in more close games. We've been able to figure out how to finish. And, you know, we get on a run offensively. We're getting some looks. And, you know, thrilled for Prentice Hub, who deserves it. I mean, he's a winner. He had a really rough start to his senior year, but, you know, when he shoots the fadeaway with 5 seconds, I'm thinking, if anybody deserves one to go in, it was him. And so to escape with a road win, no matter how you get it, we'll take it. But I thought we showed some mental toughness.
I want to ask you about both Prentice and Cormac Ryan. Here's why. They were, I think, a combined 0 for 8 going into that media timeout. Prentice, of course, had the huge threes down the stretch. You mentioned the game winner. Cormac Ryan also hits the big 3 in a tie game with, I think, about 1:15 left after not making a shot all game. The resolve of your leadership to have been not playing well and to step up in the big moments, what did that tell you about them?
I think there's some experience there with these guys, right? Prentice's 4th year of college, Cormac Ryan's 4th year of college. And to be fearless enough, even though you haven't made any, to rise up and want to take them, I can't coach that. Mm-hmm. You know, you got to have a little moxie, a little swagger, a little cockiness to do that. And both of those kids did it and said, I'm going to take the big shot. And I think we've had a number of guys now doing that, which I think serves us well moving forward.
I want to ask you about one more play before we get on to North Carolina. The last play of the game, I think it's a really tough one to defend. 5.6 seconds. I always think about Tyus Edney, of course, going the length of the floor with that shot. So if I ever see more than 4 seconds on the clock, you know a team can go 94 feet. What was the discussion in the huddle? You can't foul in that instance.
Right.
And how proud were you of that defensive effort to get the stop when you needed to?
We did a really good job. We wanted to be zone. Like you said, you don't want to give up a layup right there to lose the game. If they throw in a three, at least the odds are that's a longer shot. Yeah. But usually when a guard gets the ball with a low clock, he's not going to give it up. And I thought Prentice did a good job of getting the clock started so they couldn't roll it to half court. Blake Wesley comes over and really crowds him. Prentice levels him off, so it's not a direct layup. He's fading a little bit, and Nate came over and challenged, and we really went to the ball to make it a really difficult shot. So, that's as important, how you handle that game situation. And I thought we were really organized and really coachable in the timeout to finish that.
You got the big road win. I'm just curious, what's it like in the locker room after you get a win like that on the road in conference play?
When you have a thrilling end game situation on the road, there's not a better locker room to be in. And I mean, it's energizing to go in there and feel it and think about it and be part of it. And our guys were celebrating as they should. And my theme was just how fearless we've been. And we showed some of that same stuff against North Carolina.
One more thing, I just thought of this about the Pitt game. I wanted to ask you, I forgot. You didn't call timeout after the missed free throw, down one. You let Prentice go and make the play. Just from a coaching standpoint, what goes through your head when you decide you had two to use? You said, I'm going to let them play and not stop the game.
I thought Prentice was in such a good rhythm. Not only was he making some shots, but he was coming off ball screens like the old Prentice we remember. End of the Kentucky game last year, different making plays for us. And I didn't want them to set their defense. Right now, Prentice, you're a senior guard. You've been in this moment, and you're playing pretty well tonight. Drive us home, man. Yeah. Drive us home. And now, the shot he got, the degree of difficulty is really tough, but sometimes the karma is good because the guy is feeling good about himself and wants to say, hey, man, I'm back. And so, again, I was really proud of him and thrilled for him.
We'll chalk it up to karma. All right, you didn't get a chance to play the Duke game. We'll see if it gets back on the schedule. So you had a week off, but you got another blue blood coming to town. North Carolina in town, going into the game against the Tar Heels. What goes through your head as a coach? What was the message during the week to get them ready for a really tough opponent?
Well, it's disappointing that you have to go another 8 days. I like the rhythm we were in, playing 2 games a week and getting into it. And that's a long week of practice, especially with an older team that's practiced a lot, through their career and already this year. But I thought we knew we had a great opportunity at home, and we were really ready to play. And I'm really proud of our preparation and our concentration. This one's canceled. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to handle the week. We're going to get better at this for these 8 days. We actually compared it to the 8 days between Boston College and Kentucky. Here's what we're going to do. I put it up on the board over there. This is the plan. And I thought our guys did a great job of it. And again, we were put in situations against North Carolina where you have game pressure on you and you make some big time plays.
One of the guys that made some of those big time plays was a guy that got going early, Nate Liszeski. We've talked about him through the year. Does a great job of letting the game come to himself. He was 6 of 7 from 3, really his best offensive performance of the year in this one. What'd you like from Nate?
Well, I think, again, like you said, he's not a guy that's just going to go hunt his stuff. And he gets it in the midst of our offense. I think he knows he plays with great passers and unselfish guys. And I think he's starting to find in the midst of what we're doing offensively where to sneak around and get some looks. And he did. And now he rose up confidently too. And I've always been on him. You can take a bad shot every now and then. I want you to rise up. You're 6'11". You can shoot over the top of people. But I thought the Carolina game was a great example of really unselfish passers finding a weapon. And man, did he rise up confidently.
Another guy I want to ask about in this game, and he had a really efficient shooting day, but what stood out to me from Cormac Ryan was his defense. He took 2 huge charges in this one, but maybe even more, he played great individual man-to-man, one-on-one defense throughout the game, but definitely in some of those late possessions against Caleb Love. Just when you look at what Cormac's giving you on the defensive end, what does that mean to your team?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard not to have him in. And I think I made a mistake. I didn't play him enough in the first half, and he played 15 minutes in the second half. You know, we're much better defensively when he's in the game. Not only can he guard his man, he can guard your man and rotate over and take a charge. He's active. He's flying around. He rebounds athletically for a guard. And then he made a couple big shots and big offensive plays for us. But he loves the guard. He sets the tone for us. And right now, I think he's playing with a swagger about him and a confidence about him.
You mentioned the way your team closed this game. I'm just thinking back now. You know, Blake Wesley's hit a game winner against Kentucky. Prentice Hub hit one against Pitt. It was Liszeski late. Also, Dane Goodwin was stepping up with some big buckets. I mean, I look down the roster. It can be any guy, any night to close out the game for you. How much of a weapon is that for this team?
Well, I'm certainly convincing them of that after this week. You know, I'm thinking, fellas, we have been in game situations more than other teams, and I think we're addicted to them. All right, I know we give our fans a heart attack, and I'm losing more hair, but there's something, the thrill of it. We're kind of digging the thrill of game situations, and I'm going to keep convincing them it's our advantage when it gets to that.
Coach, appreciate it. When we come back, we'll go inside the play with this week's edition of Irish Intel on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for Irish Intel, where we go inside the play. Coach, you had some great possessions late against Pitt. I want to start with this one, though. You're up by 1, 3:20 left in the game. It's going to be some great ball movement that results in a 3 for Dane Goodwin.
Well, we do have a culture of passing here, Tony, and this is just a poised group down the stretch, kind of understanding time and score and game situations. Blake Wesley, our old guys love playing with him because he gets some open shots, and there's a great example of a probe and a kick out for a guy who you feel good about. But again, I think for Blake, through this possession, he is really poised right here. He's waiting, and this is where he's gotten better, Tony. He's gotten better at letting the game come to him. It's a rescreen, an overhelp, and a big-time find right there. And we have the ability to do that, stretch the floor, pass, and cut. And I just love the emotion after we knock that in.
The one follow-up I want to ask here, it looked like late in this game, whether it was Prentice or Blake, you sent Paul for a lot of on-ball screens, and his ability to roll to the rim also draws some extra attention. Just how big was that for you down the stretch?
No question. We were playing 4 around Paul, ball screen roll. We got a couple post feeds, but now it opens up the floor, and you're going to either get a look or you're going to drive a closeout. You know, here's where we got to look or we got to shot fake or drive that. And we really have you spread. When we downshift, and we do it a lot, and it's been darn good to us, we're hard to guard when we're downshifted.
All right, Coach, this is now in the crunch time against Pitt. 90 seconds left. You're tied at 63. Some great ball movement to create this 3 from Cormac Ryan.
Well, I know Prentice Hub's back when he does this in a ball screen. This is the Prentice Hub, feeling the game, where he splits a ball screen, big time play there, extra pass by Dane, and Cormac Ryan rising up. And you had said he had not made any, but sticking it with big time confidence. But we're playing basketball here, and we're spreading the floor. Paul's our ball screener. Prentice is reading it. You've got Prentice Hub as a quarterback. He's stirring the drink right now, and we just get great movement and a heck of a find by Prentice to make that find. Dane with a touch pass. I talked about how Dane, court vision, and this is a tough one. They're closing out on him, but it's low clock, and my man is rising up and sticking it. You know, he did make 6 or 7 at Pittsburgh last year. I reminded him of that at shoot-around. It's just playing basketball confidently, out of our principles.
The one thing I want to ask here, you got a great look at it. How about the feed from Dane? He's jumping away. He knows, this is a look where maybe he's going to have a chance to take a shot, but he just knows this pass is going to take me out of my rhythm. From the position he's in to fire that ball right into Cormac's pocket, how good is this pass?
And first of all, it's a great catch. Like, that's a tough catch right there. You know, that's a wide receiver in the end zone, right? Catch in one motion, fire. You know, it's something we do in our shooting drills. We talk about being on those X's we have on the court in the corner. Prentice knew where he was. But in one motion to do that, and then for, Cormac to know, I've got to rise up and stick it. He keeps the follow through out. Got to love it. He keeps the follow through out. But it's a fearless way of finishing a game. And I really like to see, it's neat to see these traits developing here in this group.
All right, Coach, this is late in the game against North Carolina. You had a 13-point lead. They took this brief 1-point lead. This was a really big possession for you guys to retake the lead. Talk me through the play that gets Nate the open three.
Yeah, and this, you're right. This is big. We were up 13. You're thinking you're going to get out of there with an easy one. They come back. Now you really got to have some mental toughness and play the right way on offense. Well, here again, our senior guard gets in there and finds his co-captain senior, who rises up and sticks. That's just a big, fearless shot and a big, fearless play at a key possession right there. But again, Prentice confidently knows, I probably got to make something happen right here. You know, he gets to the paint, 2 foot, finds him, they overhelp, and man, that's a big time. You know, of course, Nate Liszeski likes shooting threes against North Carolina, right? He obviously has played well through the years. I may tell him every team is North Carolina moving forward.
Hey, this is a play, though, that Prentice Hub has made throughout his career, but he wasn't maybe making in the first month of the season. To me, it was really indicative. The way he took the ball to the paint and forced them to collapse really speaks to where his head must be now.
Totally. I just think, you know, he knew, I have got to make a play. I've done this before. I'm the most experienced guy out here. I've played more minutes than anybody in the league. And he does a good job of, I'm not going to take a bad shot. I am going to find somebody. And they overhelp. And man, do we get a really good one here. And Nate does a good job of adjusting. He gets up off the baseline, so that's an easy pass. And, you know, as soon as he hopped into it like that, he wanted to take this and take it with confidence. So, you know, it's a big answer back after you lose the lead.
So, Coach, this is now with a 2-point lead. You got 2 minutes left. You're actually pretty deep in the shot clock here. Just 9 seconds left. Dane Goodwin's going to create a three for Nate Liszeski to give you that 2-possession lead. Talk me through this play.
Well, again, it's back to Dane being a guard and being a better passer, I think, in the last couple weeks and making plays off the dribble. You know, we get into some motion here. Dane probes. They overhelp, and we get a great look. Great play by Dane, but I really like what Nate's doing, how he's rising up, wanting to take big shots. But just good basketball. Fade screen here, right? Manic, Carolina's, Nate's guy has to help a little bit. He's helping on the drive. We step back up again, and man, do we get a really good one here. And again, Dane probing and finding a guy that is really confident, and Nate Liszeski's feeling good about who he is. Shoot it.
Let me ask you one thing about that flare screen, because watching it a third time, I finally saw it really did seem like late in the clock. Just that little flare from Cormac forced Manic to drop underneath to maybe help there, and it gave Nate the airspace. Is that a call late in game, or is that just these guys having great basketball IQ?
That's a principle that on our side, when we're in this fade stuff, especially when Nate's involved. Mm-hmm. When Nate's lower and involved, we like him fading and stepping back. Mm-hmm. And so this is stuff we do in our shooting drills. This is stuff we do when we go 5-on-0 motion to work on that is a kind of a principle. And in the midst of game pressure, they stayed true to themselves.
That does it for this week's edition of Irish Intel. When we come back, we'll have Irishography on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. So, Cormac, you guys have won 4 in a row, 5 of your last 6. Seems like the team's really hitting its stride right now. From your perspective, what's working so well?
I think we're just, competing. I think we've found a rhythm offensively. I think the biggest thing for us is, just hanging tough in tight games. I think that's been, one of the keys for us is, when we end up in situations where it's a close game and there's game pressure, we just stay together and stay connected and find a way to win. And we've been in those situations, pretty often. In Kentucky game was obviously tight. Corpus Christi was tight. Pitt was tight. Last night was tight. So just being able to kind of grit it out and find ways to make winning plays down the stretch has been key for us.
You've had, I think, a ton of big-time defensive assignments. I think about the North Carolina game. You took 2 big charges. We're also defending Caleb Love down the stretch. Individually, you stand out as one of the best on-ball defenders. Just how do you lock in so well defensively? What do you do to put yourself in the right mindset to perform on the defensive end every night?
I love the challenge. I want to guard the best guy every time. It gets me going. Just staying in front of guys, putting a chest on somebody, taking a charge, that fires me up. And I think trying to be a voice, for our defense and, just trying to continue to connect with our guys and get stops has been fun for me and big for the team.
You talked about late game execution. I want to ask you about a specific shot against Pittsburgh. To that point in the game, I think you were 0 for 5, and then you have the ball come to you from Dane with about 75 seconds left in the tie game, rose up and knocked down the huge three that gave you guys the 3-point lead. As a shooter, just how do you stay in that mindset when the ball comes to you after maybe what hasn't been your best shooting night to knock down maybe the biggest shot of the game?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the challenge and the fun of basketball is just trying to stay ready and aggressive. That's something I'm continuing to work on, but, in that situation, you just have to shoot it. It's a good look. It was, time was running down, like you said. Team needed a big shot, and you just got to step up and deliver it. Yeah.
This team, you've got a ton of senior leaders. You've also got a really exciting freshman in Blake Wesley. Now that you guys have been together for about 6 weeks, at least on the floor, it seems like you're really coming together. With this specific unit, what have you enjoyed most about playing with this team?
I think we just have a lot of versatility. We can kind of throw different looks at people. We can go, small ball. We can play with 2 bigs. We've got a lot of different looks we can give. And just, the way we can share it and play together. We've got guys who know how to make plays, who are unselfish, can really lock in and dig in when the going gets tough. And so it's great to kind of be together as a unit. And we've kind of, I think we've grown a lot since the beginning of the season, and we'll continue to grow as we get deeper into ACC play.
I want to go back a few years when you decided to come to Notre Dame. You transferred, obviously. As you were making that decision, what about Notre Dame attracted you to want to come here? And then what ultimately led to you making that decision?
So I grew up in New York City, so I was always kind of, I was growing up with like the old Big East and everything, so I saw a lot of Notre Dame when I was young. We used to go to Madison Square Garden and see like the ACC or the Big East tournament, and we'd watch the doubleheaders and stuff. And so Notre Dame is I grew up knowing about it, and I wouldn't say necessarily I had a dream school, but it was definitely in the conversation, especially once I was starting to get recruited out of high school. I was heavily considering Notre Dame out of high school as well. And then when the transfer opportunity arose, Coach Brey was the first person to call me, and I knew I had a relationship with him, and I knew Pat Connaughton from my AAU team, and so I had different little connections here and there, and just knowing the guys and seeing the campus and just the whole vibe of the school, it made a lot of sense. And so it was a pretty easy decision.
I want to ask about maybe then off the floor in your few years here. What's something you've really benefited from the Notre Dame experience that doesn't include basketball?
I think just the vibe of campus. The school spirit is tremendous. The kids and the faculty, and honestly, even the greater South Bend area is just, really rallied around Notre Dame, especially athletics, which is cool to be a part of. Basketball and football and, pretty much all the sports. People just, there's a care factor that you don't really find in many other places, which has been neat. And it's a blessing as an athlete to kind of benefit from that and get to experience that, but just kind of getting the vibe of campus and having that level of almost like a family is pretty neat.
I want to talk about the community a little bit more as we shift back to basketball. When you guys look at your record this year, you're 6-0 at home. You've won every game you've played at Purcell Pavilion, knocked off Kentucky, knocked off Carolina. What's been the key to your guys' success when playing at home?
Home is you got to protect your home court, and that's just as simple as that. Especially if we want to do the things that we want to do, and be a top team in the ACC, be a tournament team, which we know we are. Mm-hmm. You got to protect your home court, and so rallying around the fans. Obviously, the Kentucky game was amazing. With the packed crowd and the storming of the court and everything. But even last night, we're over break, but still a good crowd, and just kind of bringing that energy and feeling comfortable at home is important. And so we're playing well, and you just got to take it one game at a time.
Last one I've got for you. You have the 4-game winning streak going, 5 of the last 6. Things are moving in the right direction. How do you keep this momentum going into the rest of the season?
For me, you do it by not thinking about anything you just said. You just got to take it one game at a time. You can't really get too down on a losing streak. You can't get too high on a winning streak. So, we got to go into Atlanta really focused. You know, it's going to be a tough game. They're a tough team. And yeah, we just have to execute, and one game at a time, one play at a time, even, you know, as small as possible, just digging in, focusing, competing, and then, you know, the benefits will show eventually.
Cormac, appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
That does it for this week's Irishography. When we come back, we'll look ahead on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. Coach, you guys have won 4 in a row, 5 of your last 6. You're now above 500 in the ACC, and the schedule is in a really good spot now. Some really competitive, but games you can get on the road and at home. What's your mindset now going into this stretch?
Well, to be greedy, you know, and you know, I'd like to take the same demeanor we took on the road to Atlanta that we did to Pittsburgh, you know, and we're going to see some zone defense down there. It's a tough place to play. We've only maybe won once or twice down there in our short time in this ACC, but you know, let's be confident and go for it like we've been doing.
Coach, as always, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Tony.
That does it for this week's Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com.